Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 23. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday. Steelers Nation getting ready for Week 2 of the Pittsburgh Steelers season. The home opener, Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time at Acrisure Stadium. Should be a beautiful day for Steelers weather and hopefully a chance for Pittsburgh to go 2-0. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Friday. Happy Week 2 Friday. Exciting weekend on hand. Got some good college football games, and I might even try to go to a high school football game tonight. I haven't decided yet, but it's been a while since I want to sit around and eat some dry roasted peanuts and watch some college or some high school football, perhaps, if my day goes right. But yeah, we got a lot to get to today, and I think too we got an interesting injury report to look forward to later today, and obviously later on in this show, we'll start previewing the Seahawks versus the Steelers at Acrisure. And where would you like to start?
How is the high school football scene in the Vegas area? Is that a big to-do, or is that not as much?
I think it depends on, I think since I've been here, I've been to maybe 2 high school games overall. But yeah, obviously from where I come from in Northwest Florida, high school football's big there. And, it's obviously not as big as like Texas and Florida and, some of these, especially some of these areas down south and all. But there've been obviously some notable products come out of this area and all.
Anyone? Well, I guess Darnell Washington is one of those, right? He's from the Vegas area. Anyone else that I would know?
Oh, I would probably have to look. I just probably can't rattle them off the top of my head. But there obviously are a few guys in the NFL come out of the Vegas area.
All right, Dave, from the high school world to the NFL world, let's talk Steelers injury report here. Report coming out Thursday. Final one will come out Friday after Dave and I record. 4 players not practicing on Thursday. Joey Porter Jr. with the hamstring, Deshaun Elliott with his knee, Cam Hayward getting rest, Derek Harmon with his knee, Mike Tomlin on Tuesday ruling out Elliott and Harmon. Had some early week optimism for Joey Porter Jr. unless there's a big turnaround today. I'm going to doubt that he plays. We'll see the final report on him. The good news on the report yesterday, Dave, was Nick Herbig practicing in full for the first time since suffering his preseason hamstring injury. I would assume, barring any setbacks, he will make his Steelers 2025 debut Sunday versus Seattle.
Yeah, good news there. It'd be good to get him back on the field, assuming that indeed does happen. And with Joey Porter Jr., 2 days of not practicing, and then with a hamstring at that, it's not looking great. But things obviously could change. It feels like, at least initially here on the inactive report, on Sunday you're going to have Derek Harmon, Deshaun Elliott. We'll see about Porter with his hamstring, and then you're going to have probably a couple of offensive linemen in there, in Andres Pete and Max Sharping. I think that gets you up to 5 if Porter's on there, and then we'll have to see what if John. What was John's last name? The new linebacker.
Radigan.
Yeah, Radigan. If he's elevated, whether or not they'll need a 6, and it doesn't feel like they're going to have an emergency quarterback unless they promote Logan Woodside, and it just doesn't feel like that's going to happen there. So obviously the big question revolves around, I think at this point, Joey Porter Jr., and then Seattle's got some questions on their injury report as well too.
They do. They're expected to be without one of their top rookies, Nick Emanwari, who suffered a high ankle sprain in Week 1. He did not practice. Some other secondary injuries to watch too. Julian Love went from a limited participant, I should say, Wednesday to a DNP Thursday with a groin. Also, Jerron Reed, defensive lineman, did not participate. Same with Devin Witherspoon with a knee as well. He has not practiced Wednesday nor Thursday. So those are names to watch. I don't know for sure if that's a little more management and if those guys are expected to play. I know they're going to get back some pass rushers, maybe Jake Bobo going to come back from a concussion as well. But yeah, certainly want to watch the secondary in Seattle.
Yeah, is Bobo on their injury report?
He was full Wednesday and then not even designated Thursday, so he should play after missing week 1.
All right. As far as their secondary goes, we'll definitely be watching that for sure. Unfortunately, that might come out much later in the afternoon and all. Not a good week to have to prep for a secondary like that with DK Metcalf coming to town, or being in town, or facing DK, I should say.
Right, facing his former team. Yeah, with Seattle being on the West Coast, these reports really for Pittsburgh and for Seattle come out much later than usual. Usually they'll drop, 3, 4 o'clock, and now they're coming out 5, 6 o'clock because of the West Coast, because Seattle's practicing later, and they try to, I guess, align, for whatever reason, maybe competitive advantage, the feeling of it at least. Pittsburgh will wait to release their report until closer to when Seattle does the same. All right, Dave, let's talk about the Steelers coordinators, Teryl Austin and Arthur Smith speaking yesterday. Let's start with Arthur Smith, and a lot of focus on Kenneth Gainwell and what he's been able to do and how to help this team in a lot of ways as a runner, receiver, returner, and kickoff coverage player, forcing that key fumble against the Jets. So Gainwell gaining plenty of praise from everybody, teammates, Mike Tomlin, and also Arthur Smith for all that he can do to help this team.
Yeah, he obviously can do a lot in his skill set, and the reason they went out and got him is some of the big plays he made, obviously, against the Steelers as a member of the Eagles. And I can't help but keep going back and being a little bit amazed myself that he touched the football 10 times, had an additional target on top of that. So 11 plays out of the 50, whatever that they ran, were directed towards, Kenneth Gainwell, and 10 touching the football for only 23, 24 yards in total. Be interesting to see how much that carries over, because let's face it, the Steelers running game as a whole, and Mike Tomlin mentioned this on Tuesday, was not great. 0 explosive plays of running plays. The longest play, I think, was 9 yards on the ground to Warren. I just kind of having a hard time. And look, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that Seattle defensive front was not bad. They definitely got some big bodies up front there. And even though the 49ers stacked up some rushing yards in that game, it was more volume, it felt like, more than anything. I think they gave up very few big runs in that game overall against the 49ers. Let me look real quick at what the 49ers longest run might have been in that game. It looks like they had a left end run to McCaffrey for 13 yards in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter there. And I think that might have been their longest run of the game. So they pretty much, did a great job of not allowing explosive runs. I think some of those runs too came on some of those second and long situations where, kind of just handing the ball off to get some additional yardage and try to make it look more respectable there. So this is going to be a tough sledding, I think, for the Steelers in the run game department. And look, if there was ever a game that you wanted to try to prove that the game against the Jets was more flukish than anything, and I know a couple of the Steelers guys have come out on the offensive line and said, we expect to be better and plan to be better, but don't tell me about the labor pains. Show me the baby here. But I guess first and foremost, I will be I will be counting the touches that Kenneth Gainwell gets in this one.
And speaking of the run game, Arthur Smith asked about the Steelers' run game and the state of things after week 1. He gave an admitted very long answer that included World War II references, which might be appropriate for a run game that felt like it was from the 40s in this one, not much doing. But the bottom line was he called it average and must be better, and those are pretty clear because Pittsburgh's rushing attack was obviously not good enough in this Jets game.
Yeah, and we've talked. It needs. I'm not going to rehash all that we've said going into this thing, but this offensive line specifically needs to be better in the blocking component. I went back and double checked all my stats on Darnell Washington and the snaps that he played. 20-something snaps. I think they ran the ball 10 snaps or so when he was on the field, and what was it, 3 or 4 runs when they were in 2 or 3 tight end personnel groups. So I'm expecting us to see this team try to run out of 12 or 13 personnel more in this game than they did in the opener with Darnell Washington on the field. I think that would be a great experiment to undertake this weekend.
Yeah, it's interesting. I my first thought was maybe Pittsburgh didn't use some of those multi-tight end sets quite as much because they were playing from behind throughout most of that Jets game. But you look at the personnel groupings that you've mentioned, and our Tom Mead charts it. Pittsburgh had 28 snaps and 12 personnel, which is 52.8% of the time, followed by 11 personnel, 21, about 40%, 13 personnel, 3, and then the pony backfield, 21 personnel on one occasion. So majority tight ends, even in a game in which you were trailing for large chunks of the contest. So imagine what that'll look like in a game where you can play with the lead consistently.
Yeah, and look at like they were hugely behind, right?
I mean, they were behind double digits for
Yeah.
some stretch of the game, but I mean, point is, even whenever Pittsburgh trailed for a decent chunk of this game, Pittsburgh still committed to their tight ends, even on 3rd and long. I think 4 of the 7 3rd and longs Pittsburgh had, they were in 12 personnel. Arthur Smith referenced that first catch Pat Freiermuth had, they were in 12, and the Jets stayed in base, put a linebacker on Freiermuth, and he made the catch on him. Those are the matchups, and that's why Pittsburgh wants to be tight end heavy, because it could really stress a defense. Do you go big nickel and try to play a little more sub to cover the passing threats that Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith are, that can make you vulnerable to stopping the run? Or do you go base and heavy to try to stop the run, and now you're putting linebackers and rundown guys out there in space to cover? And that's the chess match Pittsburgh thinks they can stay one step ahead of throughout the season.
Look, the proof of sometimes an excellent, or not sometimes, all the time, when it comes to a good running blocking offensive line and running game is running the football when the opposition knows that you're going to run the football, and we're not even close to that point. So that is going to be a key component to this game, not only on the offensive side for the Steelers, obviously, but the way the Jets ran on the Steelers defense last week as well too. And this is going to be a Seahawks team that it feels like is going to try to establish their run and be better than they were last week.
Anything else from Arthur Smith? Those were the big takeaways. Some commentary on Mike Macdonald, the Seahawks head coach, his defensive mind, former DC of Baltimore, and some of the aggressive and creative things they do schematically over there. There was kind of an interesting answer Smith gave about protections and sim pressures, and I had a little trouble following it exactly from just a transcript provided by the team. I don't know if you could parse it any better, but there was always that chess match of, how do you handle sim pressures and who's coming and who's going, and how does that mesh with your protections and that kind of stuff, and that'll also be a big factor in this game.
Yeah, I didn't. Never got the audio of it, so it'd be great to kind of hear it in context flow out of his mouth.
Right. And then we got some World War II. He's a big history buff, Arthur Smith is. All right, Dave, let's go over to defensive coordinator Teryl Austin. And there were some comments from beat reporters, because they get to hear the press conference. These are not aired live. A transcript gets sent out later that we're working off of. And some beat writers were saying that Teryl Austin was committing to Yahya Black playing more this week after rotating in, not starting in week 1. Isaiah Loudermilk getting the start, but I couldn't find that exact quote in the transcript. Now, sometimes these things get lost in translation, and so I don't want to say that it's incorrect what the reporter said. They heard it. Obviously, we did not, but certainly we watching if Yahya Black increases that snap count in week 2.
Yeah, specifically what I'm reading here, can Yahya Black help you a little bit more this week? Would you expect to see him in there more? I think he played like 10 snaps or something. Austin says, yeah, he may have played a little bit more than that. I think, how many snaps did he play? Do you remember?
24, so it was more than 10.
Yeah. He says, yeah, he may have played a little bit more than that. I think that we've seen really good progress from him. And I think as the season goes by, he'll continue to get better and grow. We'll find a place for him because he can do a nice job in there. And just like a lot of young guys, you don't want to overload him early and have him fail. You want to give him some success and then grow from him. So it's not like, he just said, yeah, he may have played a little bit more than that. Did he come right out and say, that he will play more, or where specifically he will? I mean, 20-something snaps is was pretty good volume for him overall for a first game.
Sure, he didn't start, and I think maybe the implication would be, could he start? Could he be able to play even more snaps and rotate in? But you're right, 24-0 to sneeze at. I don't know if that initial is referencing just a general filler word, or was it referencing would you expect him to play more this week? Again, it's hard to say just reading the transcript overall, but we'll certainly monitor that snap count. I thought he played. I mean, how did you think Black played? I mean, nobody played well in that front seven in this Jets game, but how would you evaluate him specifically?
I thought he played pretty well overall. I mean, there was the missed tackle or two that he had in there, but look, there were bigger problems on that defense against the run than Yahya Black.
Do you think his role expands in week 2?
Man, well, once again, the media thinks he played 10 snaps. He played 20, 20 something. What was the percentage on that?
According to PFR, 38%.
All right, mate. I'll say this. I'd much rather see Yahya Black eat into Loudermilk snaps than I would Loudermilk playing kind of what he played. Now, I do think Aquale played fairly well up front over the nose in this one. You want me to predict whether or not he plays a higher percentage of snaps, I guess.
Sure, and these things can be circumstantial and game flow dependent, but just take a guess.
I'll say yes. I'll just go out on a limb and say yes.
I'll say yes, too. Maybe not a giant increase, but it could be closer to that 45, 50% mark. Loudermilk was at 31 snaps, 48% in week 1.
All right, and look, I mean, I'll tell you this: who's got kind of a matchup to watch in this one is Cameron Hayward against that Gray Zabel. That's going to be. You look at some of this all 22 from Seattle's game against San Francisco. That guy handled himself well, I thought, in the run blocking department and the pass protection department. And I would imagine the way the Jets ran well to the left side. To their left offensive side, they'll try to go that way again, especially with Gray Zabel over on that side, and they've also got Charles Cross over there at left tackle, and I thought he played a pretty decent game overall.
It's a pedigree Seahawks offensive line. Some also similar parallels to the Jets last week and even what Pittsburgh has. They got first-round picks in Charles Cross, who's a couple years in the league, but only 24 years old. Gray Zabel, first-round rookie, and Abraham Lucas, who's been a really good right tackle for them, one of the better guys, up-and-comers in the NFL. We'll talk about it more when we get into Seattle, but the Jets ran with success on their outside zone scheme, and that's Seattle's bread and butter, inside zone, outside zone, under that Clint Kubiak, Shanahan tree. That's where it comes from. You see a lot of the same concepts that San Francisco ran, that Jets ran, that you're getting now in Seattle. So that's going to be certainly tested to see if Pittsburgh can look a whole lot better with basically their second outing against that run scheme.
And much like the Steelers offense, the Seahawks running game wasn't all that in this game. They tried a lot of various things. You see a couple of tosses to the edge out in there. Now they did play, a stout 49ers defense as well. But I thought overall the 49ers did a good job of keeping a lid on things. But just because they weren't able to run successfully against the Seahawks doesn't mean that they won't continue to try. I think Kenneth Walker had their longest run of the game, 8 yards in this game. So they're still looking for their explosive run on offense as well.
Right, and he finished with 10 carries for 20 yards, so he wasn't good outside of that run. He was bottled up, and Charbonnet was a little more efficient, I suppose, but no Seahawks running back put up good numbers. But again, we'll save it for Seattle, but a lot of parallels I see between that Jets run game and that Seattle run game. Going back to Teryl Austin and the defensive line, this conversation is interesting because it's kind of swung back and forth. Question to Austin was, can you just find that big, squatty nose tackle to come in and stop the run in your base 3-4 instead of Keanu Benton, who's taken a lot of criticism this week? And Austin says you could, but then says, quote, if you're going to play 80% of your game in nickel because they're in 11 personnel, and then you have a guy that could be your starting nose tackle that's going to play maybe 10 snaps a game, is that worth it? End quote. And to Steeler fans right now, I'm sure they would say, yes, it is worth it, but that's the debate. We had discussions years ago. You can't draft that big rundown nose tackle because he's not going to play base defense instead. And now the conversation is get that big nose tackle out there.
And look, what was your initial thoughts? Obviously a lot of us thought, there was a good chance of a first round pick being dedicated to defensive line, and Derek Harmon was in a lot of our sites as well too, so that wasn't surprising. When Derek Harmon, especially when you look at body type and all like that, I mean, how did you first envision Black being used once the selection was made?
For Black, I thought he'd be more nose tackle. I mean, Harmon was that defensive end, that Hayward type of player and mold. Black to me felt like that big old school nose tackle.
And what was one of the knocks? Now, look, I think Benton has made strides since he was drafted, but I can't help but go back to some of the college tape on Benton, and some of the warts on him were being able to keep his balance, specifically in the run game, and being able to anchor and being able to be a guy that can be stout, as Mike Tomlin mentioned he wanted to see his defensive line be more of when he talked to the media on Tuesday there. Does Benton just need to get on weight gain 3,000 or whatnot, and just becoming more of a immovable force? Is this just something that isn't going to be in his forte? Look, the thing is it sounds like he's going to remain at least a couple more games in the middle of that defense, in base defense, and if he continues to get moved and they continue to have problems up the gut, not do a better job of keeping those second level linebackers clean, this is just going to be a weekly conversation that we have.
I think Austin's point, though, is basically in a world where most teams are 11 personnel, most offenses you see in today's NFL aren't built like the Jets that are super ground and pound, run heavy, then what is the value of a true just run stuffing nose tackle in those games? Because he's not going to play. You need guys that can rush the passer and be a nickel and get upfield. And Pittsburgh still does some more one gapping. So there's a really good debate about it. I mean, my whole thought on this, Dave, and there's a lot of nuance, I think, here. The NFL is so cyclical, and offenses started going smaller and faster, mobile quarterbacks, RPO game, horizontal pass game. So defenses had to respond, get smaller, faster. This all began in the college game. It all filters up. What happens in the college game becomes basically reflective in the NFL a couple years later. And so defenses got small. Look at linebackers today. Maybe not Pittsburgh, but a lot of teams, when they draft Devin Bush, they're drafting these smaller, faster guys. Your defensive lineman got smaller, got faster, more athletic, more versatile, that could rush the passer. And now you're seeing NFL teams say, well, every defense is now small and fast. Let's go big. Let's go ground and pound. So you see the Jets reflecting that. You see Baltimore in some ways reflecting that. Seattle in some ways, they use a fullback will reflect that. And so, it's that chess match of trying to, defenses trying to match offenses, but offenses often still one step ahead because they kind of set the tone for how the NFL will be played. So, I'm not ready to move Benton out. And even on the idea of moving Benton to defensive end, I don't know how much that accomplishes because you're facing bigger people now in offensive tackles. You're still getting combo blocks and double teams, some guards and tight ends. And now Benton can't rush the passer and win some of those one-on-one reps against centers like he's able to. So this is kind of like the whole, let's just move Broderick Jones over to left tackle and he'll be good. Like, moving positions is not cure all ills, and technique still matters. And, I think I just want to watch more with Benton. I want to see a game where they were in nickel more, they were in base an unusually high amount against the Jets because of their offense. And I think whenever Benton's true head up, as he was quite a bit in this game in Pittsburgh's 3-4 front, he's certainly not at his best. So I do want to watch more. I do get Austin's point, but bottom line is Pittsburgh has to stop the run. If they can't stop the run, everything else falls apart. They can't rush the passer. They can't get the pressure. They can't get the turnovers that they want to. And that was evident in this Jets game. So there may come a point if this run defense continues to struggle where you sit there and say, you got to do everything you can, pull out every card possible to stop the run, because if you don't do that, everything else falls apart.
Well, I tell you, we get too deep on the other side of game preview here, but that outs at fullback for Seattle played 37% of the snaps against the 49ers, and yeah, they didn't run the ball overly well there, but I don't know if I go away with that. Go away from that. So what I'm saying is I would expect the Seahawks to at least have outs out there around 40% of the plays to see if they can get the Steelers in base defense out there on early downs. Now ideally, the thing that you do is you grab a lead on this, you get them out of what they have to do where they have to roll out a lot of 11. But at least early in this game, I would expect Seattle to come out and try to run the football with a fullback on the field.
Yeah, Seattle's not waving the white flag on the run game. They need the run game to work, and they're not going to give up just because it didn't work against a divisional known opponent, against a team that knows them a little bit less in Pittsburgh. I'm sure they're going to feel like they can have more success and correct some of the things they did wrong in week number one. So I'm going to just give it more time. I've talked about if Benton continues to struggle, do you play a Quale in base and make Benton kind of more of a pure sub-package guy? I think that's possible. Maybe, I still think Black could play nose tackle. I think he's done well at defensive end. He's proven me wrong about that. So we'll see if he ends up getting a look there. But, maybe where Quale comes in is kind of more that traditional, because he's like your true run stuffer. He's not going to give you much pass rush juice. He's not elite against the run, but he is a big body in the middle. He is tougher to move. I wonder if he'll pick up more snaps if Benton does not improve.
And what does that say about Benton, though, if you've got to take a guy like a Quale to come in and handle those, a higher percentage of those base snaps?
Nothing good, for sure, and I understand about his long-term future, but it is what it is here for the moment. I know in week one, I think Pittsburgh was in, I want to say their base 20 times. I think Benton had 17 snaps and a Quale 3, and neither, production-wise, neither was good. Quale slightly better, but that's a small sample size and not necessarily all because of who was your nose tackle. So I wonder, I'll just be watching that distribution of snaps in 3-4 to see if there's any shift over time.
And look, we're hyper-focused here, seemingly on Keanu Benton here, but the storyline of this game is the Steelers' defensive run defense as a whole, because it wasn't just Benton that was behind them giving up what they gave up to the Jets.
And that's a really important point by you, Dave. I think sometimes fan base, the media, ourselves included, I don't want to leave us out, can get a little hyper fixated on just one guy. Offensive line, Broderick Jones, defensive line, Keanu Benton, and it is so much more than that. Now, Benton did not play well, and you could say he was one of the worst defenders in this game, and I think that's fair, but it's a team run defense, and if other guys played well and Benton still struggled, this run defense would have been a whole lot better. I don't think guys were always gap sound. There were some missed tackles. They weren't rallying hard to the football. This is not just a Keanu Benton problem. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers problem.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, for the starting strong safety this week, Deshaun Elliott out. I assume it'll be Chuck Clark, but Teryl Austin playing a little coy at least and says he'll get Jabril Peppers in the fold and make a decision late in the week. What kind of role, if any, do you think Peppers could have catching this moving train?
Man, you should be able to get him in there in some dime type situations, couldn't you?
If you run dime, Pittsburgh didn't run it once. Now, granted, they didn't play ahead of the sticks against the Jets, so maybe that's one factor, but they do like Peyton Wilson, and I wonder how much dime is even kind of in the docket right now. But if there was a package, then yeah, I could see that with Peppers.
And I guess if you got in some, obviously in first down situations, and Peppers seems like he's a guy that picks up stuff quickly and should be able to at least get I don't know how many snaps, what percentage would be of that, but at least on some early downs down in the box, kind of taking on that Deshaun Elliott role.
Do you think then he'll split snaps with Clark? I'm not sure if he'll play. I think Clark will start. He's the vet. I mean, and Peppers is a vet, but Clark has been here since a couple days in the training camp. It's hard to throw Peppers into the fold and just tell him to go make those plays after joining the team a couple days ago.
I think he will play. Yeah, I think the question is just how much.
Okay, I'm expecting a limited role for him, if any.
You think 20% is too high?
I think it'll be less than that.
All right. Sounds like you're going to play on some special teams too, right?
I mean, they're going to need him to. I mean, they need some other safeties to do it. Speaking of which, are you not offended? That's a bad word for it. How do you feel about Peyton Wilson playing as a wing on the punt team, having to run down punts and then go play defense? Is that big deal, no deal, some deal?
Yeah, I know you brought that up the other day there. I mean, if this guy's going to continue to play the volume that he is on defense, you'd rather not see it. He can obviously run. He is a good special teams player overall, but I mean, can't you get a guy like Radigan or somebody else to come in and handle that role?
Yeah, that was my thought. I mean, I know there's TV timeouts, not always though after punts, but often, and that gives you a break. But I just don't like playing these full-time starters, and that's why most of them don't play that on that special teams role. So the other issue is just trying to find a replacement and make the numbers work. I do know that can be an issue as well, but I would like to get Wilson off that unit.
And we'll see, obviously, Saturday afternoon, what if Radigan's brought up as part of the elevation. And look at me, you got Herbig coming off of a hamstring injury as well too. And I know the old adage, if he's healthy enough to play, he plays. But do you really want him out there a lot on special teams?
Yeah, that's point well taken. That's fair. And so I think there's a good chance Radigan will get called up. Will there be any other elevations? I forget if I mentioned this during the Wednesday show. I may have, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But to clear up any confusion, Logan Woodside cannot be elevated and serve as the emergency third string quarterback. He could only do that if he was signed to the 53-man roster in an official capacity. That rule was initially thought to go through where you could elevate a quarterback before 2024, but very late in the summer, the NFLPA vetoed that rule change or that proposal. And so you cannot elevate Woodside. You would have to functionally sign him.
Right. I think we covered that the other
Did
day.
we? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember, so I'm just repeating myself there. It's a good PSA for anyone who didn't catch the Wednesday show. Anything else there from Teryl Austin, Dave?
No, I think we hit on most of it there.
Yeah, let me just scroll through. If Porter doesn't play, then Jalen Ramsey should get more outside snaps, and Brandon Echols can play inside out. Really good for Pittsburgh to have that deep cornerback bench and versatile guys too, not just talent, but guys who can play inside out. Ramsey can play all over, obviously. Echols can play outside, inside, and that's going to give you some flexibility in this game.
And here's the thing too, though, that Seahawks receiving group's not too shabby with Smith and Jigba and geez, who else? Cooper Kupp, Bobo. We expect to be in uniform this week. Cody White got sent to the practice squad, so I don't imagine they'll be. I don't know. Maybe they will. Because they, who did they dress? Well, they only dressed 4. It'd be interesting to see if Cody White turns around and gets elevated. Because didn't he play some on special teams? Played 6 snaps on special teams. Cody White did. So
I think it was kickoffs.
Yeah. So what you might end up seeing is, they terminated the contract of Cody White because he was a vested veteran. He did not have to clear waivers. So in the same afternoon, they signed him to the practice squad. Then we could get to Saturday, and then he get elevated back and potentially, I guess, dress as because they only dressed, what did I say, 4 wide receivers, I think, for that game. And he could potentially be the 5th wide receiver that they dress, and mainly for special teams purposes, maybe take some of that off of Bobo.
Yeah, the former Steeler, Cody White, still in the league, and I think made his first ever 53-man roster this year. So good for him, the son of Sheldon White, who works in the Steelers front office on the pro personnel side. Yeah, Teryl Austin, he did make a comment that he didn't feel like this was Ravens 2.0, despite the run, defense looking really shoddy as it did in the wildcard game last year. He said, quote, "I thought it was different. It wasn't that. It was just some things where I didn't think we got knocked around. I just thought we missed some opportunities." So his thought was Pittsburgh was physical enough. They just either missed chances or didn't do their job in terms of assignment. They didn't just get blown off the ball the way Baltimore did to them last year.
And you have Cam Hayward coming out and says, we got to get off blocks. And that, obviously that, Mike Tomlin talked about that too. You can't get whooped. And this is going to be a good test of an offensive line in the Seahawks of being able to do that. Look, you got a lot to prove on both sides in the trenches this week against a Seattle team coming to your house, period.
Right. No matter if you want to say this was different than Baltimore or the same, the results were too similar and that has to change, and everything else is just lipstick.
And now, look, they don't have, obviously, a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson and Sam Darnold, and nobody has a Derrick Henry that can compare to him either. So, but, you still got to prove that you can stop the run.
All right, Dave, anything else? Anything from any players who spoke? I know these guys just mostly got asked about Aaron Rodgers, which is, I get it. It's Aaron Rodgers, but it's like you're talking to the guy. Go ask about the guy, not about somebody else. But any other comments from what players said yesterday that stuck out to you, Dave? Cam Hayward did speak about his contract and, said, hey, I got the opportunity to earn some incentives and I'll go out there and try to earn it.
Did we talk about Cam Hayward's incentives more?
We did. We did.
We didn't talk about the actual incentives, the performance incentives. I don't think we talked about.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we had a show since that came out, and I don't believe we did on the specifics of what those incentive packages are. Let me try to double check here. when that was. That was September 10th. That would have been Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, this was after a Wednesday show. So you want to run through the incentives? This is from
Yeah.
PFT's Mike Florio.
Yeah, and that kind of changes a little bit the whole conversation that we had initially, and based on the initial reporting, because it sounded like these were specifically kind of structured around playoff situations. But according to Mike Florio, and I still haven't confirmed this yet, I don't think the cap numbers moved or anything like that to be able to kind of backtrack it back. But Florio says 1.6 million of Cameron Hayward's $3.2 million in incentives is based around recording 8 sacks and the Steelers making the playoffs. Now, they obviously made the playoffs last year, so that ought to, and I think Cam had, how many sacks did he have?
He had 8 last year.
So that should make that 1.6 million then likely to be earned when it comes to cap accounting. And then the other 1.6 million for recording 11 and a half sacks or more and the Steelers winning a playoff game. And then obviously that would be not likely to be earned. So I think just the long and dirty of this, or the reanalyzation, if you will, of this is you actually got some you've got some performance incentives in this thing, and that in and of itself for a non-quarterback, and especially not tied specifically or solely to playoffs, is a little bit of a unique discussion in here, and a little bit more of that Pandora's box, I guess, opening, if you will. Now the Steelers will still try to frame it as, this is a guy that's been with the team X amount of years, first team All-Pro, captain over the age of 35. You'll hide it however you want to hide it. But the fact is that this is a little something that we have. This is something we haven't seen in years when it comes to the Steelers, and some performance-based incentives for a non-quarterback.
But it is still tied to the team component. You got to hit both. It has to be 8 sacks and the Steelers making the playoffs, 11 and a half sacks, and the Steelers winning a playoff game. And so that's going to be the mark. Hayward's only gone over 11 and a half sacks once in his career. That was in 2017 when he had his career high of 12. And of course, Pittsburgh has not won a playoff game since 2016, a year in which Hayward barely played because he got hurt midseason, was not part of that AFC title game run before the Patriots blew them out. So the question is just, is this worth it? And it's hard to look at everything and say it was. Now, Hayward's his own man, and he may say it was worth it, but he certainly took a lot of flack and a big PR hit. And for those incentives, I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, that'll be. And look, Cam Hayward obviously out of the chute didn't have a great game against the Jets. He's got a tough matchup against. Look, we talked about this several years ago when who was the left guard for the Colts?
Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, and thinking, hey, this is going to be a tough matchup, and Cam Hayward, did it. From top of my memory, he seemed to have a pretty good game against Nelson in those early games. But if Cam Hayward, if he doesn't think that the fangs are out right now when it comes to him, if he goes out and has a similar or worse game than he did in Week 1, and the Steelers and the byproduct of that once again is the Steelers getting run over, then he probably ain't seen nothing as far as what the what the chatter will be from fans after this game, and especially if the Steelers somehow wind up losing this game.
I will still say the best thing about this incentive package is that he did not have to make an official decision in terms of his Week 1 status. Will I play without any sort of contract adjustment and kind of tail between my legs after making all these threats and basically have my bluff called? Or will I actually go through and sit out Week 1, which would have brought even more vitriol, especially had Pittsburgh lost? So I think that's still the best thing that Hayward got out of this whole contract adjustment.
Look, I'll continue to say, I understand why he was wanting more money, and I understand the other side that a lot of the Steelers fans have in this, and analysts and media and all like that too, of well, if you didn't like the contract, why didn't you, or why did you sign it? Why not force the issue and make this a contract year then and go about your business that way? there, and even maybe I guess potentially used the threat of sitting out, but uh, we'll never know the true answer whether or not he would have or wouldn't have sat out the game against the Jets in Week 1, or even more beyond that. But yeah, I mean, I think looking big picture at this, it is heavily slanted against him as far as the optics go. Supposedly, according to him, this was brought to the attention. Yeah, he should have made a bigger noise about it, I guess, back in February.
Would it have changed anything,
Probably,
though?
probably
I don't
not.
think it would have.
Probably not. But you would maybe the fan base comes a little bit desensitized to it more if it's more chatter starting in February. But do you get to the same place regardless? Yeah, I mean, very well could have. But look, it's all, the milk's all out there, been out there on the table, and attempted to be cleaned up at this point. All he can do, but this is basically what he said yesterday, is go out there and and play to his best ability, and try to hit those incentives, and if not more, and get this team into playoffs and winning a playoff game. Look, if Cam Hayward comes out this week and whoops Gray Zabel and has 2 sacks and two run stops and looks absolutely phenomenal, some of that, even though it won't completely go away, it'll help lessen the sting of it a little bit.
Absolutely, no question about that. Hey, Dave, there's one other part of this apparently contract adjustment that I want to get your take on that I find really unusual. According to Florio, there was also a clause now in his 2026 roster bonus that if Hayward fails to log at least 30% of the snaps defensively this year, his $12.95 million roster bonus due next offseason will decrease to $875,000. So this is part of the adjustment, apparently. What is going on here for Hayward to have that be part of this contract change?
Yeah, that's a good additional point within that as well too. And I do wonder though too, if there are snap percentage stipulations, and I don't think Florio mentioned this, as far as, look, I mean, if Cam Hayward, obviously there's the whole sack component. So if he was to miss time with injury, play time doesn't factor into it, because if he misses time, he's not going to get the sacks, and if he's not getting the sacks, he's not going to hit the incentives, right? So I guess they kind of said, okay, well, on the flip side, though, we will penalize you for missing time due to whatever, and take it off the back end. So it really it got even that, seemingly that more unfavorable for him, right?
Right. I've never heard of a player in a contract adjustment seeking more money have his contract be potentially impacted negatively. I guess in a sense, this would help his chances of being on the roster next year, right? Because if he got hurt, and missed the rest of the season, didn't play 30%, with that kind of $13 million roster bonus, he'd likely be cut. Now, if it's under $1 million, they may just pick it up, and because it's couch cushion money at this point, less than $1 million. But it's just kind of crazy to see a player seeking more money potentially lose almost $13 million as part of an agreement.
Well, I guess what it does is, if he doesn't hit the snap percentage totals and his roster bonus goes down, it makes him easier, and makes at least the decision less pressing on the Steelers next March versus the future on him. In other words, they could essentially pay that roster bonus and then see how things transpire through the draft,
Right.
and through training camp. And if they say, yeah, we're good here, here's your $800,000, and we think it's best that you call it a career at this point. It makes them more susceptible to that, because on the other side, if he still has that 12 point whatever roster bonus and you pick it up in March, it kind of secures his spot, you would think, on the 53-man roster. So he really puts his future, he's really tying his future to what happens, his NFL future, to what happens this season now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He go out there, get hurt, and then be kept next year on that really cheap roster bonus, and then he wouldn't get a contract extension or any sort of adjustment if he got hurt for 2026. All that to say is it just seems less favorable to Hayward on that end, and that's usually not how these contract adjustments go when the player's looking for a raise or of some sort.
Yeah, and all of this once again assumes Florio's reporting is correct, but I have no reason to think that it's not at this point. But yeah, what it already didn't sound like a great, in the initial stages, initial way it was presented by the media, with it being just playoff even relegated to the incentives. It didn't seem all that great from Hayward's side either way. Initially from a PR standpoint, then now the deeper that you get into this, it seems even more slanted to the Steelers side.
All right, Dave. Anything else? Some players this week. Aaron Rodgers spoke earlier this week. It does not seem like he's on McAfee. It looks like the weekly Tuesday McAfee appearances are done. Maybe he'll pop up from time to time. Who's to say? But he was not on there Tuesday. His comments, I don't think anything stuck out to me really notably, but just really excited to be with the team. And, there was a lot of question about his fire, his commitment to football this offseason, that 3-month wait as he contemplated his future. I think not just how he played, but how he acted on the field, on the sideline, how excited he was. These press conferences really show there's still a fire that burns in that guy.
Oh yeah, look, that guy that guy enjoyed beating his former team without a doubt, and you can see how pumped he was, especially on the Boswell field goal. You can see him fist pumping. You see him in some of these NFL films, cuts of him holding up the four fingers. Was he facing the Jets sideline in that? I don't know if we got a full. I would imagine that maybe he was pointing over to Aaron Glenn, or I wouldn't be surprised. I would say if that four was in the direction of Aaron Glenn after he threw his fourth touchdown pass in that game. Yeah, here's something we could probably roll together is Broderick Jones' comments about how he played, and then Aaron Rodgers saying, he still has a lot of trust in Broderick Jones and doing all the things that you would expect a veteran quarterback to do. And Aaron saying, "Oh, look, I could be better as well too." And I think he essentially tried to take blame for one of those sacks or whatnot. And but as we've stated several times, Broderick Jones, the whole offensive line's got to play better, and we don't need to just be hyper focused on Broderick Jones, even though he did play a very poor game, I thought, in against the Jets here. The overarching storyline or deep dive look initially in this is how the both the trenches of the Steelers on both sides of the football will be examined heavily throughout this game.
They will, and you're right, Rodgers citing back tightness, limiting mobility in that Jets game as one reason why he took some of those sacks and tried to take the blame, as you said, for one or two of those. They're not his fault. They are on the offensive line, a lot on Broderick Jones, but that is some leadership shining through, realizing a young left tackle is getting crushed by the media. The narrative is that Jones is really in a bad place right now, and so Rodgers trying to at least try to take some of that heat off of him. Will it work? It won't, but you appreciate that all the same. Arthur Smith recognized that, heard those comments, and mentioned it during his press conference with the media yesterday. So, Jones himself, kudos to him, says, I got to play better. Can't put that tape out there. I think he's self-aware of that, and that's not going to fix everything, but it's a good place to start.
Yep. You got another good test this week in DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams and Boye Mafe. Yep. Man, there was even they moved those guys around a lot on that defensive line as well too. So he's going to have his hands full for sure with pass rush and all. And you'd probably be wise to roll out these extra tight ends in this game. And I think you even saw the 49ers at points on the offensive side of football here have tight ends on each of the ends of the line of scrimmage trying to help chip throughout this game. So I would expect them to give Jones some help in this game.
Yeah, usually the left side gets less help than the right side, just for how offenses are kind of right-handed in a line, but you would like to see some extra help there. But Jones, to a man, just has to do a better job. You can't give this guy help the entire season, and they're getting back Nwosu, too, Uchenna Nwosu, from injury. So that's another guy that had 9.5 sacks a couple of years ago. Has been hurt since, but the Seahawks with that Mike McDonald defense, it's going to throw a lot at you. We talked about it today with these first 4 games, maybe not the hardest games of the schedule, but some really good defenses, some good defensive-minded coaches, and Seattle no exception to that.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Dave, I think we get to our preview of this Steelers-Seahawks game. Seattle 0-1 after a tight 17-13 loss to San Francisco in Week 1. Pittsburgh, of course, 1-0, beating the Jets in a shootout 34-32. Pittsburgh's home opener Sunday, 1 o'clock, Acrisure Stadium, starting with the Seattle offense. Sam Darnold, who, if you believe reports, Pittsburgh had at least some interest in pursuing this offseason, going to Seattle after a big season in Minnesota last year, leading the Vikings to a 14-win campaign. Your thoughts on this Seattle offense?
Yeah, they definitely tried to establish the running game in this one, and once again, they had outs out there at fullback there on 37% of the snaps. I thought Njigba really played a really good game in the passing game for them. They did a good job for the most part protecting Darnold. I think he was sacked once and then fumbled, I think, on one of those. They were still able to air the ball out a little bit in this one. They did some of these kind of deeper in-breaking routes, specifically, I think, within Njigba. They're not afraid to throw to the middle of the field overall, especially if they can get the pass protection that they want. So first and foremost, as we've stated several times, you got to shut down the run. You get them in the longer situations, but they'll come out too, also in the kind of 11 personnel too, and come out throwing the football out of that as well. And once again, I think one of the key things is, and Cooper Kupp's no slouch, right? But they just didn't. The offense, especially in the passing game, seemed to run through Jackson Smith and Njigba more than anyone there. They will try, I think, in the second half specifically, they kind of a run game extension, if you will, with some of the quick screens and or trying to use the running backs in the screen game on top of it. But I was really impressed with their offensive line play overall. Can't help but keep going back and mentioning the name Zay Grable. That matchup against Cam Hayward is going to really be one to watch, I think, overall in this game. Trying to think what else they did offensively in this.
Well, like I said,
They tried to attack the edges, I think, early on in this game. In the run game, saw a couple of tosses to the outside early on. Those didn't work thanks to the speed and the way I thought the 49ers defense did a really, really good job of being gap sound and kind of stretching these things out. And once again, their longest run in this game was 8 yards by Kenneth Walker. They will rotate Walker and Zach Charbonnet in this backfield.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of flares between the 49ers, which is obvious. Clint Kubiak is the OC there, and they made a quick hook. They had Ryan Grubb last year, the OC from the college ranks from Washington, I think it was, and McDonald fired him after 1 year. They bring in a more experienced guy in Kubiak, but you also get that Jets flair too, that two-headed monster or two-headed attack, hopefully a monster in Seattle's mind, and Walker and Charbonnet, the way the Jets had Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and you're getting those guys rotate in, play pretty even snaps. You're getting a lot of outside zone. You're getting that 49ers flair of a fullback, Juszczyk in San Francisco, outs in Seattle, getting the Zorro toss game. You're getting the ball in the perimeter. Outside zone was the majority of what Seattle ran in week number 1. So Pittsburgh has always been a weaker defense against those zone schemes, those more flowing run offenses than that power gap, try to be more physical. The new Pittsburgh has traditionally not done much better against that. So the Jets certainly won with outside zone, running to the left. I imagine the Seahawks are basically going to copy and paste that game plan, see if Pittsburgh can stop it this time.
Yeah, and I think there was even a couple of plays of some trap stuff of Zabel pulling left to right, too. So you're going to see that mixed in within this.
Yeah, you get a little bit of gap scheme. I mean, no team is 100% outside zone. You got some kind of influence traps and short traps there on the 3-tech or the 1-tech, I should say. So there is certainly that flair. And while Pittsburgh, I think one thing that'll work really well in Pittsburgh's favor is that you're not facing that mobile quarterback. And so all the extra stuff you had to do to address that, whether you were slanting and scraping the linebacker, whether you're doing a mesh charge, whether you're surfing, all the different ways to try to handle the quarterback run game, that's going to be much less of an issue in this one. That's really going to let Pittsburgh focus on the fundamentals of their run defense. And to me, Dave, will give kind of a baseline true test for how alarming that week 1 performance was. I am optimistic Pittsburgh will be much better against the run in this game because you're not facing that quarterback run threat. But there is Jalen Milroe, who got 1 snap on a 3rd down. They ran a quarterback lead draw without the fullback leading the way. So even though that's more of a package situation, much more of a specialty situation, obviously there is still going to be a quarterback run threat potentially in a big moment on a big third down with that rookie Jalen Milroe, who Pittsburgh looked at. And Milroe is a fantastic runner. I mean, from as a pure runner, I mean, he was one of the best guys in last year's draft.
Yeah, they did bring him. It was him that they brought in for how many snaps on that? Then lined Darnold outside.
I think it was just the one snap that Milroe got. I don't know if
Okay.
Darnold was on the field, but I have the clip in the report. It was a third down quarterback draw.
All right, I thought that was 14 out wide on that one.
It may have been. I don't have the wide view of it. I just have it was split back. It was Walker motioned out, and then outs kind of led the way forward. But either way, Milroe could be that package guy. They also ran a tush push with a tight end, A.J. Barner. They were using offensive lineman on one snap, Josh Jones. And so you're kind of getting some wrinkles from the Seattle offense, but their base is going to be outside zone, the Kubiak type stuff, perimeter run game, got able to stop it.
And when Darnold in there, obviously isn't the running threat that Justin Fields is, but he's not afraid to take off with the football. But I do expect, especially look, this as we mentioned, top to bottom, these are going to be some tough wide receivers to cover. I mean, you even got Torrey Horton, right? And we mentioned Jake Bobo. Jake Bobo is a guy that you can move around a lot in that offense there. We all know Cooper Kupp. We talked a lot about Jackson Smith and Jigba as well too. So I would expect to see a little bit more man in this one.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see more man in this one. I think Pittsburgh has a better game plan, not facing the mobile quarterback. And even without Joey Porter Jr., you got Ramsey, you have Slay and Eccles. You're still confident in those guys. Just a couple more quick things on the run game, and I agree with you on the pass game. They did run once with Darnold, and that 2-minute drill was kind of interesting. To kind of show Seattle's commitment to the run, and they're going to be committed to the run. They ran on the first play of a 2-minute drill on their own 20, with 57 seconds left, and then they kind of hurried up. They got 6 yards and started moving the ball through the air. But the last play before the half, they ran this design quarterback power kind of play to the right with Darnold to get out of bounds, got him in the field goal range and kicked the field goal before the half. So, like you said, Darnold, not the threat. Fields is obviously, but there's still some run game elements. Darnold's not, Aaron Rodgers back there.
Yeah. You gotta have Darnold start seeing those ghosts, right? And all like that. It starts with the Steelers absolutely going to have to be able to get pressure with 4 guys, right?
But that starts with stopping the run.
Right.
With the pass game, Smith and Jigba. I mean, he was the only source of passing offense essentially for Seattle in week 1. He accounted for 124 Darnold's 150 yards against San Francisco, 83%. He accounted for 13 of Darnold's 23 targets and 9 of his 16 completions. I have to imagine they're going to spread the ball around more this week. Kupp had a quiet day. They drafted a really high tight end in the second round, Elijah Arroyo, who's a good athlete, just hurt a lot in college. He had, I think, 1 target in this game. I imagine they're going to get him involved more, but Smith and Jigba is certainly the straw that stirs that drink. And he's playing outside more. He played more slot role last year. You had Lockett, you had DK. Last year, he played only 22% of his snaps out wide. In week 1, that was 72.5%. So he played outside, those deep digs, those wheel routes. He's a really good route runner, really good hands. Those are the routes you have to watch for. I don't know if you shadow in this game, but I think you put a lot of Jalen Ramsey on Smith and Jigba, and this one take away their top guy.
I think 83 of his 124 receptions came on explosive plays in this game to Njigba, and the Seattle offense as a whole had 4 explosive. Technically, I guess 4 explosive plays because there was a penalty on a Zach Charbonneau. There was I think unnecessary roughness. The run went for 5 yards, but when tacked on, it equaled 20. So true explosive plays, I guess, that they had were 3 of them, and all 3 of them went to Njigba, pass deep left for 40. And he had deep middle on one of those deep in breaking routes for 22 yards, and he had another one deep right side for 21. So this is a guy that can produce on either side of the field and in the middle of the field too. You can't let this guy have 120, 140, 150 yards receiving in this game, even though 49ers did a good job of keeping the rest of the eligibles at bay, because I think Cooper Kupp was second on a team with 15 yards receiving.
Yeah, well, when Smith and Jig was making those plays, you just feed him, and the Niners had no answer all day. Although the one knock on Smith and Jigba, 2 fumbles in this game, and I believe he lost one of those too.
Mhm.
And so, Ramsey, you got aggressive corners. Can you pry that football out? I'm sure Smith and Jigba and the coaches over there in Seattle are focusing on ball security. Darnold lost a fumble late in that game that helped them lose, and so, I'm sure Seattle's trying to rectify that. But if you're Pittsburgh, that's a big, big flag that says go ball search and try to take this ball away.
The better that they can run, the better that offense will definitely be for them, for Seattle and all. You got to get Darnold in those 3rd and 7 and longers and have them hold on to the football.
One last note, just in 4th down, they had a hard count on 4th and 5 early in this game, didn't go for it. They went for it, I think, on 4th and 2 down near the goal line around the 4-yard line, and they had a little specialty play designed for Cooper Kupp, aligned as a running back. He ran a wheel route, and they threw the ball. It was, I think, a PI, and they converted that way. So even though Kupp really wasn't involved, there's some different things they'll do with him in those 4th down kind of got-to-have-it moments.
They'll even line him up a little. There was 1 or 2 plays, I think, where Kupp even started off in the backfield, and they had to Kenneth Walker lined up outside.
Yeah, that was the 1 4th down play
Right.
where they threw that wheel to him. So yeah,
Okay.
the Kupp's got to be accounted for, and he still can be a star player, not the player he once was, but he used to be the guy. I still think back to that time, that 2019 when Pittsburgh shut him out with 0 catches. Mike Tomlin was asked about that after the game and was almost taken aback whenever the reporter said, "You guys shut out Cooper Kupp." He's like, "Is that true?" So this is a guy that a little Aaron Rodgers like. Maybe he can't make all the plays he used to, but he can still make one good play for Seattle, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right, flipping over to Seattle's defense, they held the Niners in check, 17 points. I mean, they picked off Purdy twice. They got some pressure on him. They sacked him once. What are your thoughts on the Seattle defense?
That was a real nice interception that the linebacker had, dropping way back, and Purdy maybe held on to that thing a little bit too long, but it was a very, very athletic interception there. As far as their run defense went, I thought overall their 4 down front did a very good job overall. Now I think the 49ers lost tight end George Kittle early in this game, so he, you not having a good blocker like that really can impact stuff. The 49ers just stayed kind of just consistent with trying to run the football, even though they weren't having a lot of success. I think volume ended up being the key factor, because once again, I don't think the 49ers busted very many explosive runs offensively against this. And that 4-man front really does a good job, I thought, of pressuring overall. They'll stunt these guys and twist them and all like that. And even a big guy like Leonard Williams, if he's not, that's another guy that you can twist inside. So I would expect a lot of stunting within this from this front. They did have an interesting blitz, which I think came out of a bear from a slot defender there that just absolutely ran clean after Brock Purdy in one of these. So they're not afraid to send pressure. I just don't know how much because you don't want Aaron Rodgers holding the football, and I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try their 4-man rush early and try to lay back in some coverage type situations here overall, and see if they can get away from having to blitz a lot in this. They played the Seahawks are like to play. Look, quarters is the new what? Cover 3?
I don't know. Well, you're in the sense of you're saying like it's in vogue again. Teams are using it again. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of a good comparison too, but it's now become more of the flavor of the week for sure.
And against the 49ers specifically, we'll see how much that holds true. I think they played 36% of their coverage was cover 4 quarters in this one, and then mixed in within that they played. They didn't play as much. They played the most quarters in the NFL in week 1, and I think they were down in the pack as far as cover 1 man went. They 21%, I believe, of cover 3, and then some cover 6, which is kind of easy to pick out, especially when you look at boundary versus field side there. They played 15% of that. So you're going to probably more than anything get a mix of quarters, cover 6, and cover 3 when they play zone.
Yeah, and cover 4 certainly, in vogue, and they're still playing some cover 3, but kind of gone are the days of the Legion of Boom that will just kind of play
Right.
straight cover 3 all day. You're getting some more mixing and matching cover 4, bring those safeties down a little bit, a little closer line of scrimmage to help stop the run and stop their run. They generally did against San Francisco. Seattle runs a base 4-3 front, and Pittsburgh often has had more trouble against 4-3 teams than 3-4 teams. They don't practice against 4-3 teams, obviously, and so they just have more trouble with those defensive ends. The Jets ran a 4-3, for example, and had success stopping Pittsburgh's run game, so Pittsburgh has to prove it. As you said, they slant, they're aggressive, they're one gap, and they got good athletes up front. They got pedigree up front, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, those are high pedigree, and Williams, an established type of a guy. They got a lot of edge rushers. They rotate those guys, getting Nwusu back, and Mafe and D-Law that you talked about. So, can Pittsburgh in their zone scheme, because Pittsburgh wants to run his own scheme, can they avoid that upfield penetration? Can those gaps get created on your zone track when you kind of turning your hips and trying to get down the line? Seattle's going to try to slant and shoot those gaps. Can Pittsburgh be able to reach and cut off on the backside? That's going to be really key. So I certainly have my concerns. Pittsburgh will be able to run the ball more effectively in this game because it's going to be a tough front to run on.
Yeah, look, as we noted, I think the Steelers do need to roll out more 12 and 13 with Darnell being parts of that to try to get this run game going. But if you're using a lot of 12 or 13, I don't know, maybe the Seahawks kind of counter and play too deep safety type situation within that, either cover 4 or quarters, and just see if they can let their big boys eat up front while keeping kind of a lid on it, if you will, on the back end.
Yeah, I think one thing, and this cuts both ways, but even though Pittsburgh doesn't play Seattle more than every couple of years, Mike Macdonald knows Pittsburgh. I mean, he was a DC in Baltimore. He knows how the Steelers operate, and granted, it works the other way. Pittsburgh has an idea of how Seattle operates, but they're probably more familiar, Seattle is with Pittsburgh than maybe they have been in other seasons. So, yeah, the run defense for Seattle could certainly pose some problems. They got, Ernest Jones is a good linebacker. No one talks about Ernest Jones in terms of good off-ball linebackers, but he was fantastic for them. He played every down in week 1. He picked off a pass. He had 8 tackles. I mean, he was a really good player for them. He was with the Rams, I think, last season. In coverage for Seattle, you mentioned cover 4. That's the big thing for them. Josh Jobe played well for them. I think he helped replace some of Eamon Worthy's snaps. You got Tariq Woolen, who's a big corner, who's going to probably be on DK a good amount in this game. I don't know if he'll travel the way that Sauce did, but I guess we'll kind of wait and see on that. Witherspoon, his first-round guy. We'll see if he plays, obviously. The health of the secondary is going to be important. But you see a lot of sim pressures from Mike Macdonald. You see a lot of creativity. You mentioned that sack that Julian Love had running free up the middle. There's also kind of what's become in vogue too is you're giving those really heavy sim pressures and everyone's mugged up, everyone's on line of scrimmage, looks like it's going to be man coverage, and they drop out and play zone, and you're kind of fooling the eyes of the quarterback, thinking, okay, I'm getting heavy pressure man. Even if someone drops out, I'm probably getting a man pressure, and now you're rushing 4, you're playing cover 2 or cover 3, and so can Aaron Rodgers decipher that and figure that out? Certainly his experience, his football IQ, you like his chances, but everyone else has to figure that out too. Everyone else has to be on the same page with their routes and being hot and all that kind of stuff. So, I think dealing with some of the sim pressure looks on third down is going to be really key in this game.
And I think the 49ers, of their 5 explosive plays in this game, a couple of them, 3 of them, I think, went to Ricky Pearsall, and they seem to do better with trying to attack more away from the middle of the field overall. And here's one thing that stuck out is it seemed like that I counted up 11 or 12 missed tackles in this game, and it felt like coming out in the second half, Seattle wasn't tackling as well on defense after the catch there. And if these corners, these secondary guys are banged up, I want them to try to bring down guys like Darnell Washington and DK Metcalf a lot. I try to run over those guys and make them make business decisions in this as well. Because overall, I did not think as the game went on, Seattle defense did a very good job at tackling. I mean, even if you have to do some quick slants with DK or even some quick screens with this, we saw this last week in week 1, and as part of some RPO stuff as well too. Even get the ball in DK's hands however you need to, even if it is behind the line of scrimmage. And I would expect to see maybe one of the ones that they gave up an explosive play was to Kyle Juszczyk, and that seemed like a blown coverage overall because Juszczyk starts trying to block, I guess, at the line of scrimmage and then releases and really goes uncovered down the right side. It was a very easy pitch and catch to Juszczyk for 25 yards, and that was one of their 5 explosive plays in this game.
Yeah, just some other quick thoughts here. Their defensive line, which is also very popular, will go 3-by-1 formations on 3rd and long. So 4 down front, 3 guys to one side, 1 kind of backside defensive end. They're going to stunt and loop. And so that pickup's going to be really important in this game. Their defensive ends will also sometimes drop out whenever running backs go to the flat and kind of chip, or kind of a funky look there. So be careful kind of throwing the quick game to some of these running backs. I think overall, flood Seattle zone coverage. That's going to be one key. They're primarily zone, as you talked about. The secondary's hurting, so probably going to rely on more zone. They're not going to try to man up on some of these backup defensive backs. So flood the zone, maybe run some Yankee concepts. I think could have success in this game. Have any other final thoughts here?
They will move around those defensive linemen up front as well too. So they don't stay side specific. DeMarcus Lawrence will switch sides. And I mentioned I think a snap or two. You even saw Leonard Williams maybe coming off the end as well. Byron Murphy is a very stout nose tackle. Jerron Reed can push the pocket as well too. And then Mafe gets lost in all this. Don't forget about that guy as well. And I think Ernest Jones was the one that had the interception in this game, right? I mean, that looked like a zone type situation. He just continued to watch the eyes of Purdy and then found himself right there. Made a nice leaping interception on that. That ball looked like it was going to be completed over the middle of the field at first, but he made a nice play on that ball, reading the quarterback's eyes.
It's a good defense, and even though that secondary's hurting and they may miss some guys, it's the NFL. I think back to, remember when Pittsburgh played Tampa Bay, 7-22, and they had nobody in the secondary? It was like Quincy Wilson and James Pierre. I think Edmonds was the only starter in the secondary that game against Tom Brady. You're thinking, oh my God, they're going to get destroyed, and they won. That's one of the few times they beat Tom Brady. You never know. You see some of these backup defensive backs, they step up. You don't know those guys as well. Maybe the scouting report's not as extensive on what they can do. So I'm just saying, even though it looks attractive for Seattle to potentially miss some of those secondary pieces, you never know. One guy to go after, Kobe Bryant, number 8. And he shares the same name as the former basketball player. Rest in peace. Not the same spelling, but he's pretty aggressive. I saw him bite on play action a fair amount in this game, Dave. So you might be able to get him to influence to come down, then throw over the top.
Yeah. Let's just hope the Steelers offense can run the football. That's going to be a big component of that. And Devin Witherspoon's a hell of a damn player as well, too. Goes without saying. Very impactful.
Yeah. 5th overall pick for a reason. We'll see his status for this game. That got good specialists, too. Jason Myers and Michael Dixon. Dixon's one of the best punters in the NFL, so those guys can flip the field and steal points.
Didn't they block a field goal attempt or something in this one?
Did they? I should have gone through my special teams homework better. I believe you, though.
Let me see if I can get that real quick. They blocked Moody had a 36-yard field goal blocked by Love in this one for sure, and Seattle covered that. So that felt like a give me 3 points because it was at 4th and 2 at the Seattle 18, and they They blocked that, so special teams kept them in it within that. As you mentioned, they put the ball on the ground 3 times in this game. I think Jigba fumbled twice, lost one of them, and I think Sam Darnold fumbled the other one away.
Yeah, I think that was late too on Darnold, so that was a big difference. Yeah, what a game Julian Love had. He had a sack, he had 10 tackles, he blocked a field goal. Moody's now cut, so. Yeah, I mean, those things can be the difference in this one. It's a well-coached team. It's a good defense overall. All right, Dave, we'll make our
Seattle,
picks.
one last thing,
Sure.
third down efficiency. The 49ers were 7 of 14, and they converted a couple of long ones, I think, especially early on in this game on third down. So they were 50% overall on third down, which is a bit surprising the way the tape flows in this one. So the third down was their bugaboo, probably a big difference maker in this game, especially when you flip over to the other side that the Seahawks only completed 3 of 10 third down opportunities in this game. So you circle that, you circle the couple of giveaways in this game. That's big. The big difference in this one, or in that one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think San Francisco only 2 of 5 in the red zone, I believe, in this game. And so those red zone, that situational football is going to be really, really important.
All right.
All right, Dave, before we make our week 2 picks, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
That's right, Alex. We're excited to have MyBookie back sponsoring the Terrible Podcast, and especially the Friday show where we go through all of our picks. If you're waiting for Sunday to start betting, you're missing half the fun and half the money. College football is already cooking, upsets, blowouts, wild covers, and MyBookie lets you hit it all. Game lines, player props, and more. Everything you need before the pros even kick off. When Sunday rolls around, you're already up. MyBookie's got it all under one roof. Win big on their Super NFL contest and their Survivor Pool contest. And if you're new to MyBookie, use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's right. Go to mybookie.ag, sign up, use promo code TERRIBLE at sign up, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token given. MyBookie's where bettors win together because bragging's good, but cashing in is even better. So make sure you go to mybookie.ag, use promo code TERRIBLE, get in on the bet back bonus up to $500, where you get up to $500 back on any bet you choose. And that's mybookie.ag, and excited once again to have them back as a sponsor of the Terrible Podcast Friday episode. All right, Alex, let's get into the games. One obviously already took place on Thursday night between the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Commanders. The final line in that was 3.5. Packers favored at home. We were on opposite sides of that. I took the Packers laying the 3.5. You took the Commanders plus the points. I ended up outdoing you on that one. The Packers seemingly handled the Commanders pretty good in that one. They did lose. Who was the wide receiver the Packers lost in that to the shoulder injury?
Jaden Reed, the number 1 receiver, broken collarbone, likely to IR, probably will miss the Steelers game. Not 100% guaranteed, but I'd be pretty surprised based on the injury and timeline he gets back for that October 26th contest. So that is one future note, and probably evaporates any hope of Romeo Doubs being traded, because I assume they're going to hold on to him now.
Yeah, let me tell you, the Packers look good at the receiving component and defensive component even after he left the game injured there. So the Packers look for real. All right, moving on to the rest of the games. Cleveland Browns on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. This is the 30th anniversary of the move, right? Or something like that. Browns are 12-point dogs on the road to the Ravens. What say you?
It's a big line. The Ravens with a big blown lead in that one. I'll take the Browns. That defense can still play well. It'll keep the score down a little bit. Baltimore wins, but Browns cover.
I'll take the Ravens to cover that 12. They're going to blow them out. Cincinnati at home playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Cincinnati, who did score a lot of points against Cleveland last week. 3-point home favorites against Jacksonville.
Big win for the Bengals here. They right those wrongs. I know they're still slow starters, but Browns always play them tough. I'll take the Bengals.
I will take the Bengals to cover that 3 points at home against Jacksonville as well, too. The Dallas Cowboys host the New York Football Giants. The Cowboys laying 5. I thought Dak played a pretty good game in that first game. He just didn't get any help whatsoever. The time or the sands through the hourglass seemed to already be ticking on Russell Wilson, who will start this game. Jackson Dart waiting in the wings. Dallas favored by 5 at home against the Giants.
I'll take Dallas. They played well in a lot of respects. The CD dropping those passes won't happen again, and you're right. That's big for Pittsburgh on comp picks, too. So you want to root for Russell Wilson to hold off Dart as long as he possibly can. I think Nick Corte, the comp pick expert, says at least through week 7, which I'm not loving the odds of that happening, but we'll see. I'm taking Dallas, though, Dave.
I will take Dallas late of 5 points. I think they destroy the Giants at home. Let's see. Lions coming off of a loss, hosting the Chicago Bears. And the Lions are 6-point home favorites against the Bears.
Yeah, this one, the Lions looked a mess in week 1. The Bears blow that lead. I'll take Detroit, Dave. Don't feel super confident, but I'll take the Lions.
Yeah, the Detroit can't obviously afford to go 0-2, especially in the division and all. I will take Detroit and lay. What did I say? It was 5 points in that one.
6.
I said 6. Sorry, Lions laying 6. I will lay the 6 there. Miami Dolphins. That sounds like the clock's ticking over there in Miami as well too. They lost in huge fashion in week 1. However, they are favored at home this week against the Patriots, who also lost in week 1. Dolphins favored by 1.5 at home.
Give me the Patriots. Better culture. Think Miami's a mess. Players only meeting on week 1. Bad sign. Could bounce back, but I'll take the Pats.
I will take Mike Vrabel's bunch as well, too, to upset the Dolphins. Give me the 1.5 in that one along with you. Tennessee Titans hosting the Rams. The Rams are 5.5-point road favorites in this one.
Yeah, Cam Ward under a lot of pressure. Dan Moore, tough week. That defensive line for the Rams versus and company. I think Rams win big.
I am with you. I'll lay the 5.5 points with the Rams on the road. All right. The Saints hosting the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers, I'm not going to have Brock Purdy in this one. They're banged up at wide receiver. Even so, the 49ers are laying 3 points on the road.
Pick the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. I'm regretting that decision 1 week in because I forgot that everyone there is made out of glass in San Francisco. Mac Jones will start. No George Kittle. Juwan Jennings, I think, will play. It's the Saints, to their credit, they hung tough. They weren't pushovers. What's the line on this one again?
3 points. 49ers on the road.
Ah, man. Give me the 49ers.
I'll take the 49ers win big. That defense versus those quarterbacks, it doesn't make sense. I'll be surprised if the Saints score 10 points.
You're doing the Chewbacca defense on this pick here. It does not make sense. Okay.
Yeah, it does not make sense. Lay to 3. That's my stone cold lead pipe of the century, of the week, of the year right there. 49ers lay to 3. Jets at home versus the Bills. The Bills laying 6 on the road against the Jets. Jets.
No Ed Oliver. He hurt his foot in practice apparently, and he was a man on a mission against Baltimore to help that comeback happen. Jets, can they take the air out of the football and play ground and pound, keep the score down? I think they can. I'll take the Jets to at least cover.
I'll go the other side of you. Take the Bills, cover that 6 in this one. Arizona Cardinals at home against the Panthers. The Cardinals, the 1-0 Arizona Cardinals, laying 7 points at home against the Panthers.
It's a pretty big line. I'll say Panthers cover.
I'm with you. I think the Cardinals win, but I think the Panthers cover this one. I'll take the +7 with you. The Colts at home against the Broncos. Kind of thought the line would be a little bit larger in this one. I smell a rat here. Broncos 1.5-point favorites on the road.
I mean, Danny Dimes played a heck of a game. Kudos to the Colts. A tough Denver defense, I think, brings the Colts back to earth a little bit. I'll ride with Denver.
I'll ride with Denver late 1.5. I ain't scared. And what figures to be a really, really good matchup. Super Bowl rematch. Kansas City hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles 1-point road favorites.
This must win for Kansas City to avoid going 0-2 in a competitive AFC West.
They got a tough game in week 3 too, don't they? They've got a tough start to the schedule. Did they play Baltimore in week 3? Who did the Chiefs play in week 3?
Check. Good question. Do not know top of my head. I'll get you the answer though. It is the Giants Baltimore week 4.
Okay, they play Baltimore week 4 then. I'm sorry, I had them mixed up there. Look, you obviously don't want to get off to an 0-2 start, but Eagles laying 1. What do you have?
I'll take the Eagles.
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles late 1 point on the road as well, too. How about Minnesota hosting Atlanta? Minnesota 3.5-point favorites in this one at home. Are you a McCarthy believer based on that second half?
Yeah, not the first half. That was a tale of two halves, and why you shouldn't tweet midway through a game. I kind of learned my lesson there, making a little bit of fun of McCarthy. This one's tough. I will go Atlanta's still a solid team. This is in Atlanta or in
It's
Minnesota?
in Minnesota.
Give me Minnesota.
I'll take the Falcons plus 3.5. I think the Falcons win this outright. Houston hosting Tampa Bay. The Texans 2.5-point home favorites against the Buccaneers here.
Yeah, I like both these teams. I'll take Tampa Bay.
I'll take Tampa Bay plus those 2.5 as well, too. I think they can win this outright. How about the Raiders hosting the Chargers? The Chargers 3.5-point road favorites.
Chargers look really good in week one. A lot of respects. Herbert slinging the ball around. I think the Raiders have a decent team, but they just couldn't run the ball well. Need to get that going. I'll take the Chargers.
All right, I'll take the Chargers on the road, laying those 3.5 points as well too. That circles us all the way back to the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Seattle Seahawks. This line has stayed pretty consistent all week and feels like it will end at the Steelers 3-point home favorites in this one. I wouldn't expect this one to move unless maybe a couple of these corners are indeed ruled out on Friday for Seattle there. What say you, Steelers at home by 3?
Realized I pick a lot of road teams for my picks in this one, which feels a little scary to do. Will I do it this time with Seattle on the road? I won't. I'll take Pittsburgh in this one, get the score out early, 17-9. Everyone thought last week defensive game all the way through, 10-9 rock fight, offensive shootout. I think this week maybe a little more expectations for offense and scoring. I think both defenses bring it in this one. I think Pittsburgh's run defense gets right, or at least a whole lot better, not having to deal with that mobile quarterback threat that Justin Fields was, and all the wrinkles and headaches and extra attention that requires. Offensively, Seattle has a good defense. I think Pittsburgh's run game will not get right as much as the run defense will. Keeps the score down overall. But Seattle, in Jigba, if you get Ramsey on him, get some pressure on Sam Darnold in this game, I think it's enough overall. Pittsburgh at home, winning this one 17-9.
All right, this should be a classic rock fight, I think, here. And the over-under on this is 40 points. I think it's the lowest over-under game total of this week here. So I still suspect, even though it's a low 40, to go even under that. This will be a close one off. This will be typical, biting your nails, sweating it out in the fourth quarter. The Steelers will enter the fourth quarter trailing 16-13. They'll get another turnover or something in this game, and the Seahawks in and punch it in. I had the Pittsburgh Steelers winning at home, just barely covering the 3 points by 120-16. Steelers pulling this one out late to start the season 2-0. And I'm with you. I'm not convinced that the Steelers run the ball all that well in this game. I think there will be some improvement in stopping the run overall, but I have a feeling that we'll still be talking about they need to get better on both sides of the trenches coming out of this, and that they have another week's worth of game film to look at on the heels of having a win there. So 2016 Steelers in this.
As we always will do each week, Dave, if Pittsburgh wins this game, what is the reason why they won it the way that you picked it?
Shutting down that run, getting off the field on third downs, getting a turnover or two in this game, playing a lot more sound on special teams, just winning a nice rock fight.
Yeah, I think big thing is the run defense returns to largely form, contains Charbonnet and Walker. No easy challenge. The run scheme's going to be a problem, but being able to really just focus all 11 on the runner instead of the quarterback is going to be, I think, a big game changer in this one. So that's the main reason why I'm picking Pittsburgh to win. If they lose this game and drop the 1-1, drop the home opener, what is the number one reason why they would lose this game?
Giving up grounds on the yard to those two running backs and Walker, Charbonnet for starters, and JSN. JSN. Yeah, I wanted to get his initials out there. That guy going off and hitting you for 4 or 5 explosive plays, and then obviously, the Steelers can't turn the ball over deep in their own end. On top of it, so I imagine that if Seattle wins this, it would be failure to stop the run, turning the ball over twice, and just all the other little Jackson having a reasonably good game.
What is his brother doing? His brother was a Pirate, Kanan Smith-Njigba, for a time. Looks like he is a free agent right now. Anyway, yeah, if they were to lose this game, it's really simple. On the other side, I think Pittsburgh's run game won't get going, and that'd be the reason why, where you just can't be one-dimensional and expect to win every single game the way that Pittsburgh won week one. And so lack of a run game makes Pittsburgh one-dimensional against that tough front and that good pass rush is not sustainable, and that'd be a reason for pause and concern about Pittsburgh losing this game.
What do you read about Shaquille Griffin being signed off of the practice squad yesterday by them?
That their DBs are hurt and they're probably going to need some reinforcements for this game.
All right, that was part of the whole Cody White shuffle there. We kind of hinted at the move, didn't name the name, but Shaquille Griffin, obviously an experienced guy there, so I would probably expect him to be in uniform, and we'll wait a couple more hours to see what the final injury report looks like for both teams, with Joey Porter being the key one on the Steelers side of things.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
And also apologies, we had beat writer lined up here for Seattle, our buddy Greg Bell, but something fell through there last minute. We were unable to get him on the show. So one of the rare occurrences where we have somebody lined up as a beat writer, but unfortunately through things not under our control fall through. So apologies if you were keyed in to maybe listen to the opposing side there. We hope to not have that happen very many times during the season here. So let's see, what are we, about an hour and a half into this thing? Let me see if I can get some emails pulled up here while you vamp just a tiny minute here.
Yeah, Green Bay, just that game last night, man, they look like world beaters. I always kick myself. I was debating between the Niners and Packers for my Super Bowl pick, but who knows? Long season, we'll see what happens. There, of course, we'll be back on Monday to recap everything. I'll have my little video right after the game on Sunday, and then looking ahead to week 3 against New England Patriots. But of course, sights on week 2 in Seattle for now.
All right, let's start with Titus Nelms, writes in, wait, they won. Listening to your Wednesday podcast, I could have swore they lost by 40. They scored 34 points, including on their first drive. The quarterback threw 4 TDs. The receivers had yak. The coordinator actually schemed players wide open. Your vaunted Jets offense couldn't close out the game. The defense made stops when they absolutely needed to. Didn't we highlight all of those things, though?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact tone. I'm sure there was some negativity. I get my viewpoint is, it's never as good as you think it is, never as bad as you think it is. So when a win, sometimes you look at what can you do better, and there was certainly a lot to do better. But I think we did certainly highlight the impressive parts and how great Rodgers was and how it was good to win despite not playing your best football.
He says, I get the analytics, and I know everyone wants to predict what's coming, but how about crowing about what's sustainable when it's not sustained? All right. He wants us to do that. What's sustainable from the Steelers' week 1 loss? I mean, week 1. You got me
Okay, there you go.
All right. You got me. You got me, Titus. What is sustainable coming out of the Steelers' week 1 win?
The defense making plays when it counts. I think certainly they have the guys that can step up in those big clutch moments, which you saw in those last 2 drives, not just the Ramsey plays, but getting stops. That Cam Hayward tackle on 2nd and 5, the 3rd and 3 stop that, didn't let the Jets start grinding the clock out. I think Rodgers certainly showed he can play well and can command this offense and be able to win the chess game, even though he won't throw 4 touchdowns every single week. So I think those are some big positives that certainly can be sustained going forward.
Boswell's leg is sustainable within that. I mean, look, we have to look at this at both sides here. I mean, top to bottom. I forget who put it out there. Adam Schefter or something earlier in the week on McAfee says this is a very un-Steeler-like win, and it was. And it did come down to this defense making a couple of plays late, and this offense was more dink and dunk overall. They did not turn the football over. I think that's something that's potentially sustainable, right?
Sure. And I understand the point, and I made it too. This was an un-Steelers-like game, obviously to win 34-32, not their mode of operation. But wasn't this also in some ways a Steelers-like game? Didn't play a great game, but still found a way to win late and make those clutch plays in the final moments. That is how Pittsburgh's basically won for the last 5 years.
All right. So did we paint it as as a game that most people would have thought they didn't win the way we painted it? Did we paint it fairly enough? Because we did make sure to highlight a lot of things that even he said. Well, we highlighted the receivers and the yak in this game. We highlighted that we thought Arthur Smith called a good game and got the players open. We talked about the big plays, especially on the final drive. We talked about how even that we thought the penalty against Ramsey wasn't great. We talked about Calvin Austin having a strong, a couple of nice catches in this game. We talked about how we thought there should have been a DPI. I thought I was surprised when I opened this email.
I'd have to go back and listen to kind of see the tone, and I just give my thoughts. I don't try to get too caught up in what is the tone. Am I being happy enough? Am I cheerleading? Am I being sad enough in a loss? I'm just kind of giving my overall thoughts. But the answer, I think, the relevant question of what is sustainable, it's Boz, it's a defense stepping up in clutch moments, it's Rodgers, it's spreading the ball around the playmakers. That's the goal of this offense for sure. I thought Jonnu Smith made a really good point. Simple as it is, each position group scored a touchdown in this game. Running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. That's how Pittsburgh wants to win. You got Metcalf making plays. He's a big-time playmaker. Austin stepping up. His ascension continues. All that's really encouraging going forward.
They spread the football around, right? And that's something that
100%.
we expected them to do within that. All right, I'll end this with Ty saying, I generally enjoy your Wednesday breakdown show, but if the Steelers week 1 was that bad, your week 1 performance was questionable at best. So our point taken, Ty.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'd have to go back and listen, but if we didn't give the great impression, then fair.
All right, let's see. This one from Bryce. Alex, during training camp, did you see them work on any pistol? He says, I don't understand why they don't utilize that more to get in and out of play action, play faster, so 77 doesn't have to hold his blocks as long. You can still set up deep shots from pistol as well. Seems like a missed opportunity. Look, I'll tell you this, play action under center sure was, Aaron Rodgers can still do that. He still was very effective overall with play action in this game. How much play action did you, or how much pistol, even if you use pistol, it's not something that you're going to probably use heavily. I guess this question is did you see, how much pistol did you see during training camp? And do you think they should use more pistol? And Aaron uses pistol as well, too. They used some with the Jets last year. I mean, you're going to see that, I think.
I only remember one snap where they used pistol, and that was the last practice after Rodgers got stepped on. It was a little gimpy that day. Listen, I've been barking up that tree for a long time. I don't know why more football teams in general don't use pistol. I love the marriage of the downhill run game without the sidecar action while still being able to get the quarterback away from center, be able to kind of scan a bit more. So I don't know why. I'd love for some coach to tell me the reasons why pistol, the downsides. I don't think it's going to really protect Broderick Jones a whole lot more, whether you're under center play action or pistol play action. I just like the overall marriage of kind of best of both worlds. It only feels like teams use pistol whenever the quarterbacks are hurt and they don't want to put him under center because he can't get away from center as quickly. That was Rodgers last year because he was playing through a knee injury. Remember, Ben would go in pistol sometimes whenever he had his various knee and foot ailments, and just seems to be a common theme around the NFL, pistol not used that much. But I'm on the Chris Alt train all the way. That was in the Nevada days of the pistol. I think it's a really cool weapon. I don't know why it's not used more.
How much? We don't track. I thought we did. Don't we chart pistol or no? I don't think we do.
We should.
Oh, wait.
No.
No. Yeah. It's over here.
Under P.
And there is no P. So they did not use it at all against the Jets.
Oh, no, they didn't use it all against the Jets. Yeah, I can tell you that for a fact. I don't know how much they used it last year. What did they use last year? I don't know if you're able to pull it up from our Tom Meat charting.
I don't know.
How much pistol? All right, won't worry about that. But I wouldn't expect to really use it. I saw it once in camp, and it just seems to be one of those things whenever the quarterback gets a foot injury, they go into pistol. But I think it should be used more, so I'm with you overall sentiment.
All right, he says, I love seeing these tight ends detached from the line in week 1 and used in different ways, but for week 2 at home, is it time for the Steelers to break out more bunch sets to help get Jonnu, Calvin, and Roman more free in space against this really good Seahawks secondary? Here's what I want. Do you want to see Washington on the field more in 12 or 13 personnel? I think the discussion as far as personnel usage and grouping starts there more so than it does bunch sets.
Yeah, I like to see Darnell out there for a team that couldn't run the ball a lick in week one. I think getting your best run blocking tight end. Yeah, there's always that dance. You got 3 tight ends. You're not going to be in 13 personnel a ton, maybe 10 snaps a game, kind of on the high end, maybe a little bit more if you're running the ball with a lead late. So you got to rotate and kind of pick your spots. But yeah, I want to see more Darnell. Could you bunch more? It's week one. You're not going to see everything. You can't get everything accomplished in week one. And those guys made plays. Jonnu had a touchdown. Calvin played well. DK played well. I mean, it didn't feel like those guys weren't getting open or weren't getting chances. So it's not something where I feel like you have to shake things up a ton. But over the course of a full season, yeah, you're going to see more bunches and stacks. And I think Arthur Smith called a good game. Look at those 3 of those touchdowns were wide open.
Wide ass open.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you want to draw it up. And your fourth one was the jet sweep to Jonnu. So, like, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that as an OC, but you got basically 3 wide open touchdowns and a jet pass.
And I think that's why part of why Aaron Rodgers' PFF score wasn't all great, because they weren't high challenging throws with I think even you could have made a couple of those throws, Alex.
But
if you could see over the offensive line.
Yeah. If I didn't pass out from fear pre-snap. But yeah, I mean, listen, I will take a low PFF score and 4 touchdowns that are wide. You know what? Open, as you said, Dave, every day of the week.
Where was I going with this? Over or under 4.5 snaps of 13 personnel.
Over.
I'll take over as well too. I think put it out, line it up, and strap it up this week, boys. That's my thoughts on this.
How many yards does Pittsburgh rush for as a team this week? Over and under 99.5.
Oh, they'll be under that.
They'll be under that. So you're not expecting a lot of run game success still as a team.
No.
Even though they're going to be in 13 personnel more.
Nope.
All right.
How many runs of 10 yards or more?
Well, I assume you're not going to pick a high number for that. I will say 1.
I'll say 2, actually. I bet most of their yards come on a couple of runs. Here's one thing. We got to see less sacks, right? We've got to see some explosive runs in this one over 10 yards. I would like to see Aaron Rodgers' average depth of target and completion creep up a little bit in this, and I'd like to see his average time to throw creep up just a tiny percentage point or something like that. On top of it. All right, Ron Reagan, not the president. Anyone remember the storybook finish for Jerome Bettis' career? Let me suggest a similar scenario with the Steelers beating Green Bay in the Super Bowl with Rodgers retiring afterwards. I know it's 95% pipe dream, but I can't help it. I'm guilty of being a long-time overly optimistic Steelers fan. Not to mention an all-time great stat for Rodgers to have won the Super Bowl once with one team, then return with the team he beat to defeat his old team. Oi, double oi. Thanks for the scintillating analytics, Ron Reagan over there in South Pasadena, or over the other way, South Pasadena, Florida there. Look, nothing wrong with being optimistic there. I will remind you that it's week 2 within that, but that would be kind of storybook, if you will. Aaron Rodgers playing his former team in the Super Bowl. I would root for that as we sit here right now, for sure.
Yes, I would too. I think we'd all sign up for that game. Yeah, listen, it's week 1. We'll see what happens. I will say under Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh has made the playoffs all 7 times in which Pittsburgh started a season 2-0. And so that's a pretty big kind of line in the sand if Pittsburgh can go 2-0 in this game.
Well, there you go, jinxing this team. We're going to get those emails now. Look, I'm excited to watch this game. We'll be back talking about it on Monday, whatever happens. I think that's all the emails we got to get through, running low on time here. So, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, sign up, get a username and password, and then make sure you hit the login button to use that username and password to get an ad-free version of the site. So, until Monday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and the undersized Alex Kozora.